Mormon family. They quit practicing polygamy.
For years, the Browns have presented themselves as a family willing to share everything with the world. From their struggles with plural marriage to their emotional breakdowns, viewers felt they had seen it all. But the truth, as it turns out, may be far darker and more secretive than anyone ever imagined. Because while the cameras rolled and fans tuned in, hidden behind the polished reality television image were secret bank accounts, funds carefully tucked away, quietly moved, and never meant to be revealed. And now, the cracks are beginning to show. It began with whispers. The sort of rumor that die-hard devotees dismiss as tabloid fluff. Some individuals on the internet alleged strange financial transactions taking place in the shadows, strange buys that didn't make sense, and escalating hostility between the wives that seemed to transcend the personal infidelities everybody already suspected. But whispers have a way of escalating, and before long those rumors developed into something that couldn't be overlooked. Christine, who had already made the courageous decision to exit Kody, reportedly came across papers that made no sense. She wondered, why were there money movements taking place from accounts that she didn't even know about? Why were some funds always lining the pocket of Robin whilst the others were left to suffer? These were questions that she could not erase. Sources close to the family claim that Christine started to understand that the financial picture that she thought she had known for years was not whole. And if what she learned was true, then Kody had been keeping something secret from them this entire time. To understand the implications of this disclosure, you have to keep in perspective how much money was here. The Browns were not just any ordinary family. They were a reality television show. TLC spent hundreds of thousands per season. Merchandising opportunities came about, and their notoriety spawned other opportunities outside of the show. That kind of money, with wise management, could have set all of the wives up to live comfortably ever after, but recklessly managed or stashed into secret accounts, it could destroy them sooner than any individual adultery ever could. And that is just what occurred. The money trail starts, as with all scandals, with someone asking too many questions. Christine wasn't the only suspicious one. Janelle, being the pragmatic person that she was, always kept a close ear to the money. She knew how much they were to make, and she knew too when figures didn't add up. Bills paid late, debts unpaid, and strange withdrawals were taking their toll on her. The family was tense, but Robin's home was always fine. How could that be the case should all the wives carry the same financial burden? The books were barred to Janelle, but rather than answers, she was met with anger, deflection, and general reassurances that things were being taken care of. That only made her suspicious, because if, according to Janelle's logic, there was nothing to hide, then why not open the books? Why not show to her each and every detail of the accounts? Unless, of course, there was something that he shouldn't want to have her see, and with each of those questions adding up. A reality emerged. Kody, with Robin's help, had allegedly made secret accounts, not the family accounts that everyone had access to, but kept in the dark, hidden away accounts that quietly funneled money into places none of the others knew about. TLC payments, merchandise deals, and potentially even loans. Money supposed to give all of their families financial security were secretly diverted. And after the wives learned about what was being done, that feeling of being betrayed hurt worse than any emotional blow ever could. Picture living with a family for decades, putting your independence aside, sacrificing and sharing everything with the goal of unity. And then learning that the man who claimed to want loyalty was actually constructing a financial fortress for him and one wife alone. That is what Christine and Janelle reportedly experienced, and with each new discovery, the picture grew increasingly awful. As put together by those who've sorted out the money trail, the accounts weren't insignificant. We're not discussing money stashed here and there. We're discussing large sums, funds that might account for why some debts were not paid. Why Janelle resided within an RV. why Christine felt she couldn't establish her new life, and why Mary, despite her loyalty, seemed perpetually on the sidelines. Robin and Kody's household, meanwhile, had been privileged to comfortable living that the others were not. The tension, which had always simmered, began to boil over. Christine, already at her breaking point, felt justified in her decision to walk away. Janelle, once seen as the steady one, began voicing her frustration louder than ever. And Mary, caught between loyalty and loneliness, couldn't help but wonder if she, too, had been nothing more than a pawn in Kody's game. The unity of the Browns, the very image that built their fame, was collapsing under the weight of hidden dollars and secret transactions. And here is the shocking part. The payments might not have been kept secret after all. There were indications that some of these accounts were connected to businesses and trusts that were public records, hidden within papers that very few people would ever take the trouble to read. Hints were right out in the open transfers. Signatures, account names. Yep, it was all there, waiting to have its dots connected. And then the dots were connected. The image was unmistakable. The Browns' financial empire was not only turbulent, it was unscrupulous. And when fans started catching wind of this, the narrative of the perfect polygamous family began to unravel faster than anyone could have imagined. Because this wasn't just about money, it was about betrayal, loyalty, and the kind of secret that changes everything. And if you thought the wives were just going to quietly take this news, you were wrong. Because not only was this discovery the end to a financial falsehood, but it was just the commencement of a legal and emotional war that would tear the Browns apart in ways that even TLC could not dramatize, and that war had only just started. The aftereffect of Kody's secret accounts discovery did not simmer silently in the background. It blew wide open. What began as quiet whispers among the wives snowballed into heated arguments that could no longer be concealed from the cameras or the audience. The once tightly guarded image of togetherness had broken wide open, and in its wake was a narrative of betrayal, silence, and authority. Christine, already a step away from the marriage, now felt justified in a manner she never anticipated. Stepping out from Kody was one thing, but discovering evidence that he had been secretly skimming money gave her actions a different gravitas. She explained to friends that the sacrifices she made over decades now felt all the more bitter, because she hadn't simply been competing with him for his affections. She'd been competing against hidden bank accounts she had no idea he kept. The more she considered the history of the family's financial struggles, the angrier she became. Each sleepless night, lying awake, fretting over bills, each sacrifice she made, while Kody and Robin got to live in comfort that somehow never caught up with the other wives. Janelle's fury had a different fuel to her. This wasn't betrayal, it was common sense. She had left Kody in charge of the future of the family, had trusted that he was managing money in a way that was equitable. When she found the secret accounts, it wasn't only a blow to her trust. It was a blow to the years she had spent diligently attempting to stay afloat with the family. All those money arguments, all those frazzled debates about budgets and real estate, suddenly were explained. The reason the numbers never worked out was because she had never been privy to the entire equation. And then there was Mary for years. Mary had clung to the family long after it was expected that she would be gone. Her loyalty, her ability to suborn Kody's needs over her own, was something that seemed to confound so many. But even Mary could no longer deny the evidence. When she came to understand, she had been left out of the financial decisions that mattered most. The feeling of betrayal pierced her more than she ever could have imagined. She wasn't only unwanted in Kody's heart, she'd been erased from his financial future too. The wives were angry, but anger wasn't sufficient. They needed answers, and they needed accountability, and soon, whispers began making the rounds that lawyers had been brought into the picture. That is when matters escalated from personal betrayal to legal combat. The accounts, insiders claim, weren't as secret as Kody perhaps had hoped. In reality, some of them were bound to family trusts and businesses that created paper trails. As soon as lawyers started retrieving records, the story started building itself up. Money intended to be split had been directed elsewhere. Signatures indicated deals that not all of the wives had signed off on. TLC contract money, sale proceeds of property, and even loans appeared to just disappear into these accounts, and then pop back up in forms that directly benefited Robyn and Kody. The court papers presented a damning portrait. Far from one big happy family mucking in together, the Browns were divided into two camps, those left scrambling for leftovers, and those living high on secret cash. Christine and Janelle's suspicions weren't just emotional. Those suspicions were supported by evidence, and that evidence was now poised to go public. Fans naturally started speculating wildly. Social media filled with theories. Others claimed the accounts had been opened as far back as the first time the family had received a large TLC payment. Others thought Kody had been secretly mapping his way out for years, so that when the family did eventually collapse, he and Robyn would have a nest egg that none of the other women could get her hands on. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: the Browns' financial empire wasn't constructed on trust, it was constructed on secrecy. But the scandal wasn't over yet. As attorneys investigated further, more questions emerged. How much did TLC realize? Did the network have knowledge of these undisclosed accounts, or had Kody been able to conceal them even from the individuals who were footing the bills? And if the network did have knowledge, what did that say about their involvement in the destruction of the family? Fans started calling for answers, not only from the Browns, but from the same company that created them. For the wives, however, the matter was not just personal. Christine started speaking up more forcefully, suggesting in interviews and on social media that there were truths out there that the public had yet to discover. Janelle also began making veiled references to financial hardship and unfairness. Even Mary, who had so frequently remained mum, could not resist suggesting that all might not be as it appeared. Each of these women, in her own way, started dismantling the myth Kody had spent so many years creating, and the more they talked, the angrier the fans got. How could Kody talk about unity and family values on national television and allegedly invest money into hidden accounts? How could he require loyalty from financially struggling wives while keeping Robyn in comfort with secret funds? The hypocrisy was more than many viewers could stomach, and demands for accountability escalated with each new week. The scandal was no longer about money. Now it was about betrayal at all levels. The wives felt betrayed as partners, the viewers felt betrayed as viewers, and even TLC appeared trapped in a storm they could no longer contain. But most appalling revelation was yet to be revealed. For according to sources, the secret accounts weren't merely reserved for setting aside money for Kody and Robyn's family. Some of the transactions exposed something much more devious. Money reportedly diverted to pay off debts and liabilities the other wives were not aware of. Debts from investments that went wrong, collapsed business ventures, and risks in money Kody had undertaken without even talking to the family about them. This implied that not only had Kody been keeping money away from his wives, he had also been playing games with their future. And when those details began to surface, the anger turned into something deeper. Christine reportedly told friends that this wasn't just selfishness, it was sabotage. Janelle allegedly called it financial abuse. And Mari, quietly devastated, wondered aloud if she had wasted decades of her life believing in a man who never saw her as part of his future. The Browns, who once represented outside the box togetherness, were now the ultimate example of how secrecy can unravel everything. And the wives weren't just walking away emotionally now. They were gearing up to fight back in every way they knew how. But if the hidden accounts were bad enough, what followed would shock the family, but not only them, everyone who had ever believed their tale. For in the documents lay one fact that shifted the ground beneath their feet, a payment so inexplicable, so sensational, that it asked far more questions than it provided answers. And once that fact emerged, the Browns' empire would never be the same. The fact that stunned everyone to their foundations wasn't another withdrawal or deposit. It was a transaction that just didn't seem to add up. Buried within the documents was a payment called a private settlement for more than $500,000. The twist: the funds didn't go toward one of the wives, or towards some expense related to the family. It was paid to an external entity whose relationship with the Browns had never been made public. The disclosure sparked a maelstrom of rumor. Who was the enigmatic recipient? What type of settlement would possibly necessitate that amount of funds? And most importantly, why had Kody taken such measures to make certain that none of his wives were aware of it? Christine was the first to express what many had already considering. She felt the payment was connected to one of Kody's ventures having failed. An attempt to silence someone, or clean up a mess before it got out of hand. For her, it was evidence that Kody had not just been secretly stashing money, he had been knowingly making financial decisions that placed the entire family at risk. Janelle, always the practical one, went straight to the figures. In her opinion, the payment coincided suspiciously with one where the family had professed to be broke. She recalled the anxiety during those times, how they had had to make every dollar stretch, how Kody had argued that they could not indulge in simple things, and how everyone had been made to feel guilty about even proposing to spend money on themselves. And now, finding out that at the same time Kody had signed off on a huge settlement quietly, her rage overflowed. Tomari, the money was something sinister. It was symbolic. A reminder that Kody's priorities never were herself, or maybe even any of the wives besides Robin. If he could so readily direct money to a stranger at the expense of the women who had been there for him for decades, then what did that say about the foundation of their so-called family? To her, the settlement was more than a financial betrayal. It was the ultimate proof that she had never really been important in Kody's life. But the payment's mystery didn't stop at the wives. Once word got out, fans were relentless in their pursuit of information. Twitter and Facebook exploded with theories, from lawsuits, to hush money, to clandestine business arrangements. Some even wondered if it might be connected to secrets the Browns never wanted uncovered, secrets that could make the financial impropriety seem tame in comparison. TLC, once more, was in the crosshairs. Fans demanded to know if the network had been involved in keeping this payment under wraps. After all, if the money trail was connected to the family's earnings from the show, then how much of this was really about the Browns, and how much was about the network defending its investment? And meanwhile, the wives were no longer happy to sit on the sidelines. Christine started pushing harder in her interviews, alluding to unspoken truths that fans hadn't yet even started to unravel. Janelle was said to have taken on a financial advisor of her own. Hell, bent on getting to the bottom of the books. And Mary, while less vocal, was said to be seriously contemplating becoming a part of legal action against Kody. The family, once bound by shared faith and loyalty, was now splintered beyond repair. The wives no longer saw themselves as part of a unit. They saw themselves as survivors of a system designed to benefit one man at their expense. Kody, naturally, had pleaded innocence. He portrayed himself as a victim of exaggeration and false interpretation. He stated that the stories were all for the sake of the family, that the wives were misrepresenting the truth out of resentment. He maintained that the payout was busyness related, but he would not give specifics. In his mind, the scandal was merely a concerted effort by wives who had revolted against him, but denial would only take him so far. The more he testified, the more inconsistencies emerged. Each thing he said seemed to raise more questions than answers. And in the court of public opinion, Kody was losing quickly. Robin, also, was targeted. Being the wife most involved with Kody's finances, the fans started speculating about what part she played in the accounts. Did she know more than she was letting on? Was she a beneficiary of the hidden funds? Or was she just another pawn in Kody's game, swept up by his control issues? Her silence only fanned the flames. And then, in a surprise that even longtime devotees weren't prepared for, Sources leaked that one of the wives had formally filed to subpoena records connected with the accounts. The gloves were off. What began as muffled rumors within the family now raged into full-scale legal combat. The wives were not merely upset anymore. They were combative. Christine demanded honesty. Janelle demanded compensation. Mary demanded recognition for the years she had been left out of things. And collectively, they appeared set to destroy the financial net Kody had woven around them. But as the documents started to come out, another bombshell fell. The hidden accounts weren't only in the name of Kody. They were also associated with names that hinted at something far larger: shell companies, trusts, and partnerships that went well beyond the immediate family circle. This was not a matter of one man stashing cash. This was a complex system, crafted skillfully, almost professionally, to hide assets from view. The implications were immense. If Kody had gone to such extremes to safeguard these funds, then what else was he not telling them? And who else could be involved? For the wives, the revelation was both frightening and empowering. Frightening, because it showed just how far Kody had stretched without their awareness. Empowering, because it meant they had a trail to follow, evidence that could at last bring accountability. Viewers sat in awe as the tale unfolded before their eyes. Twitter and Facebook overflowed with hashtags demanding justice, demanding investigation, demanding consequences for Kody. The narrative had done a complete flip. The Browns were no longer quirky polygamist family dealing with issues of daily life. They were the hub of one of reality television's largest scandals. And yet, despite all of this commotion, there was still one question left hanging. What on earth was that $500,000 settlement for? The wives had theories. The fans had theories, but the reality remained hidden, locked up in documents that hadn't yet surfaced. And when the truth did finally reveal itself, it risked dismantling not only Kody's empire, but also the legacy of the sister wives' brand. Because if the payoff was what others had suspected, then the Browns were not merely concealing cash. They were concealing something far more sinister, something that would forever alter the world's perception of them. By the time the reality of the $500,000 payoff finally came out, it was bigger than anybody could have dreamed. Court documents showed that the money had been paid as a settlement of a claim related to a failed real estate investment. Several years before, Kody had made a fateful gamble, one he did not tell all his wives about, that went haywire. The payoff wasn't merely a matter of money lost. It was a matter of shattered agreements, unpaid obligations, and claims of fraud. For the wives, the news was devastating. They had worked for years to barely scrape by, pinching pennies, and forgoing their own aspirations, while Kody quietly invested family money in projects they never even knew about. Christine cried when she learned the specifics, expressing privately that it was the last straw in the burial of her marriage. Janelle, being the realist that she is, confessed she wasn't surprised, just angry that she had wasted so much energy pleading Kody's financial case. And Mary, she merely stopped talking, her silence a louder statement than any angry outburst could possibly have made. She knew then, absolutely, that the man she had trusted for all those years had erased her from his life long ago. But the scandal didn't end there. As investigators dug into the accounts, more was revealed. More evidence that indicated Kody had been tapping family money, not just for questionable business ventures, but for personal indulgences that were directly in his own and Robin's interests. First-class vacations, secret purchases, even home remodels. All sneaking from the accounts to which the other wives were denied access. The hypocrisy was widespread. On television, Kody had preached sacrifice, unity, prioritizing the family. Behind the cameras, he had constructed a financial empire intended to benefit himself and one wife above the rest. Fans who had previously identified with his plight turned on him full force. Social media exploded with outrage, calling for TLC to drop the Browns and for someone to be held accountable after all these years of deception. The wives, on the other hand, started taking back their power. Christine, now free from Kody, spoke louder than ever before, assuring anyone who would listen that the real truth was just starting to come to light. Janelle, bolstered by the documentation, consulted lawyers about how she could reclaim what she believed was rightfully hers. Even Mary, who had spent years keeping a low profile, started to suggest that her silence was the result of loyalty. But loyalty only goes so far. As the squeeze tightened, Kody became more and more defensive. In interviews, he attacked his wives, claiming they had betrayed him, distorted the truth, sought to demolish him. But all he did was add fuel to the fire. The more he talked, the more fans penetrated beyond his words. The image of the macho patriarch, once so studiously managed, had utterly fallen apart. In its place was a man raw, in extremity, and boxed in by his own secrets. Robin also couldn't avoid the storm any longer. Her involvement in Kody's finances made it too easy to criticize her. The fans accused her of being in on it, of profiting from the secret accounts while acting like she was innocent. Even though she claimed not to know the ins and outs of Kody's financial life, her silence throughout the scandal said everything. In the eyes of many, she wasn't just a witness to the deception. She was an accomplice. The coup de grace phase came with the revelation of documents showing the enormity of the secret empire. The funds weren't merely a few secret stashes. They amounted to millions. Funds that were supposed to be distributed among the family had been secretly stashed, shielded by umbrellas of shell companies and trusts. For the wives, the betrayal was unfathomable. For the public, it was irrefutable evidence that the Browns had never been the family they acted to be. TLC, beset by growing criticism, rushed to get back in charge. Some behind the scenes sources alleged the network had been aware of the accounts, but had looked the other way to shield their show. Others argue TLC had been caught off guard just as the wives had. Regardless, the network's integrity suffered, as fans wondered how much of what they had witnessed on Sister Wives was ever genuine before the dust could even settle. The Browns' dynasty had fallen. The wives had traded their agony for authority, refusing to back down from the man who had wronged them. Fans, once enthralled with their tale of togetherness, now had to witness the family destroy itself with secrets too enormous to keep. And Kody, self-proclaimed patriarch of the family, found himself naked, not as a leader, but as a man whose kingdom had been constructed upon deception. The Browns' narrative had always been pitched as one of faith, strength, and family. But ultimately, it turned into a warning. A reminder that no matter how you present yourself, no matter how much you keep to yourself, the truth has a way of emerging. And when it does, it can tear everything down. The wives departed with scars, but with freedom as well. Christine drew strength from her independence. Janelle found power within her voice. Mary, after years of silence, finally perceived clarity in the chaos. Even the fans, though betrayed, discovered a strange form of closure. They had witnessed the truth at last. But for Kody, redemption was not an option. His secret bank accounts, which he had worked so hard to keep under wraps, had been his undoing. The dynasty he had built over decades had fallen in a blaze of glory, a legacy of anything but harmony. And as the world watched, there was one burning question. Was all of this worth it? Since the Browns' tale, originally an emblem of strength, would now be remembered for all eternity. Not for family or love, but for secrets that destroyed it.